My mother-in-law burned my plane tickets in front of everyone. Wives don't travel alone, she declared. My husband stayed silent. His sister recorded it, laughing. They expected tears. Instead, I pulled out my phone and made one call. Within 24 hours, their perfect family image collapsed. She's not really family, Margaret. You know that, right? Vincent's voice came through crystal clear on the recording device hidden in the dining room centerpiece. I sat in my car outside our house, listening to 2 years of secretly recorded family dinners. This one was from 8 months ago, before Barcelona, before the tickets, before everything exploded. Nina's useful, Margaret replied, her tone clinical. She makes good money, keeps her mouth shut, and she's too weak to ever leave you. We can control her. Sophia's laugh echoed in the background. She actually thinks we respect her. It's pathetic. I pressed pause, my hands trembling with rage. For 24 months I'd been collecting evidence. Not just recordings but documents, photographs, bank statements, emails. I'd hired Graham Weber, the best forensic accountant in the state, and we'd built an airtight case against my husband's money laundering operation. Today was the day Margaret burned my tickets. Tomorrow federal agents would arrive. But right now, in this moment, I forwarded the most damning recordings to my divorce attorney with a simple message. Use everything. The restaurant had been Vincent's choice. Bellissimo, an upscale Italian place where the chandeliers cost more than most people's cars and the waiters spoke in hushed tones like they were in a cathedral. He'd wanted to celebrate his promotion to senior vice president at Meridian Financial Group. Margaret had insisted on hosting the dinner, naturally. She always insisted. And Vincent always agreed. That's how our 12-year marriage had functioned. Margaret made declarations, Vincent nodded, and I was expected to smile and stay silent. I'd worn my navy dress, the one Vincent claimed made me look professional. I'd arrived on time, brought an expensive wine, and sat exactly where Margaret pointed, at the far end of the table, away from Vincent, away from the center of attention. 40 guests filled the private dining room. Margaret had invited colleagues from her banking consulting firm, Vincent's co-workers Sophia and her husband Andrew Park, and various society friends who treated me like furniture. The evening progressed normally until dessert arrived. Margaret stood, tapping her champagne glass with a silver fork. Before we conclude this wonderful celebration, she announced, her voice carrying that particular tone she used when making proclamations, I'd like to address something that's been troubling me. My stomach tightened. I knew that voice. Nina, she said, turning to face me directly. Vincent shared that you've been planning a trip to Barcelona. Alone. Every head in the room swiveled toward me. He crept up my neck. A work conference, I said quietly. For corporate law practitioners. It's inappropriate, Margaret cut me off. Wives don't travel alone. It's unseemly. It suggests problems in the marriage. It makes Vincent look weak, like he can't provide proper companionship. I glanced at Vincent. He was looking down at his plate, jaw tight, saying nothing. Margaret, it's really not, I started. She pulled my plane tickets from her purse. I'd left them on the kitchen counter that morning. She must have taken them when she'd stopped by our house uninvited, as she often did. She held them up for everyone to see, then placed them on a silver serving platter. Before I could react, she pulled out a lighter and set them on fire. The flames consumed the paper within seconds. Guests gasped, then laughed nervously. Some applauded. Margaret smiled like she'd just performed a magic trick. There, she said. Problem solved. A wife's place is with her husband, supporting him, not gallivanting across Europe pretending to be single. My face burned hotter than those tickets. I looked at Vincent again. He was smiling. Not nervously, not apologetically. He was actually smiling, nodding his approval at his mother's performance. Then I heard the familiar chime of a phone recording. Sophia had her iPhone pointed directly at my face, capturing every second of my humiliation. She was live streaming to her 50,000 Instagram followers, her expression gleeful. This is everything, she whispered to Andrew, not quietly enough. Look at her face. She's about to cry. This is going viral. Something crystallized inside me in that moment. Not sadness. Not embarrassment. Clarity. Cold, sharp, absolute clarity. They thought I was weak. They thought I was controllable. They thought I would sit there and take it, maybe excuse myself to cry in the bathroom, then come back and apologize for causing a scene. They had no idea what I'd been doing for the past 18 months. I reached into my purse and pulled out my phone. Every eye in the room watched me, expecting tears or drama. Instead, I smiled calmly and dialed a number I'd memorized months ago. "Graham," I said, my voice steady and clear. "It's time. Send everything." Graham Weber didn't ask questions. He'd been waiting for this call. "Confirmed," he said. "SEC and FBI will have the files within the hour. The reporter contacts will have their packages by morning." I hung up and placed my phone on the table. Then I looked directly at Margaret. "Thank you for such a memorable evening." I stood, picked up my purse and walked out of that restaurant with my head high. Behind me I heard confused murmurs. Sophia laughing. Vincent calling my name, but not urgently, not worried. Just annoyed that I'd disrupted his celebration. I didn't look back. In my car I sat in the parking lot for 20 minutes, letting the adrenaline settle. Then I called my divorce attorney, Patricia Morrison, and told her to file everything we'd prepared. The papers were ready. They'd been ready for 3 months. I just needed the right moment, the right trigger, the right justification that even Vincent's expensive lawyers couldn't spin into my being unreasonable. Margaret had just handed it to me on a silver platter. Literally. The next call went to my colleague David Chin, who specialized in media relations. "I'm sending you recordings," I told him. "From Margaret Castellano. Racist, sexist, discriminatory statements made over 2 years at family dinners. I need them delivered to the right journalists. Can you handle that?" "Absolutely," David said. His tone told me he'd been expecting this conversation too. I'd mentioned Margaret's toxic behavior months ago during a lunch meeting. He told me then to document everything. I had. The third call was the most satisfying. I contacted the FTC tip line and provided detailed information about Sophia Castellano's lifestyle blog and Instagram presence. She claimed to live in luxury homes, drive expensive cars, wear designer clothes. The truth was messy. The homes were Airbnb rentals she photographed for a day. The cars belonged to friends. The clothes were borrowed or purchased, photographed and returned. Her sponsors, luxury brands paying her thousands for authentic lifestyle content, had no idea they were funding an elaborate fabrication. I documented all of it. Receipts, rental agreements, return confirmations. Andrew had helped me access Sophia's email and financial records over the past 6 months. He'd grown tired of his wife's obsession with fake perfection, tired of the Castellano family's toxic dynamics, and when I'd approached him carefully with my concerns, he'd become an unexpected ally. We'd been friends in college, Andrew and me. We'd lost touch after graduation, then reconnected 6 years ago when he married Sophia. He'd reached out to me privately a year into their marriage, expressing regret about joining this family. We'd met for coffee occasionally, commiserating about our situations. When I'd started building my case against Vincent, Andrew had quietly offered to help. "They're destroying both of us," he'd said. "We should destroy them first." That night, after the ticket burning, I drove home and transferred the last of my important documents to the safe deposit box I'd rented under my maiden name. Birth certificate, passport, jewelry my grandmother left me, photographs of my parents. Everything that mattered, everything Margaret and Vincent couldn't touch. Then I packed a suitcase with 2 weeks' worth of clothes and moved it to my car. Just in case. Vincent came home around midnight, drunk and belligerent. He found me in my home office, organizing files. "What the hell was that?" he demanded. "You embarrassed me. You embarrassed my mother. Walking out like that, making a scene." I looked up at him calmly. "I made a scene? Your mother burned my plane tickets in front of 40 people while your sister live-streamed my humiliation. But I'm the problem." "She was trying to help you," Vincent slurred. "Help you understand your role. You've been acting strange lately. Distant. Like you don't care about this family." "I don't," I said simply. "I care about my self-respect, which is something your family has tried to strip from me for 12 years. He laughed. Actually laughed. "Self-respect? You're a lawyer. You make good money. You live in a beautiful house. You have everything you need. What more do you want?" "A partner," I said. "Not an owner. Not a family that treats me like property." Vincent's expression hardened. "You're being dramatic. My mother loves you. She just has strong opinions about how marriages should work. You knew that when we got married." "I knew a lot of things," I said. including how you've been using shell corporations to launder money for your clients. $2.8 million over the past 4 years. Through accounts your mother set up 15 years ago for tax evasion. I know about Silverstone Holdings, Meridian Trust Services, and Cascade Financial Partners. I know about the offshore accounts. I know everything, Vincent. The color drained from his face. You're bluffing. I opened my laptop and turned it toward him. On the screen were spreadsheets, transaction records, email threads between him and Margaret discussing creative financial solutions for wealthy clients who wanted to hide assets from the IRS or move money without reporting requirements. Graham Weber is a forensic accountant, I said. He's been building a case for 18 months. Every transaction traced, every shell corporation exposed, every illegal transfer documented. The SEC and FBI received his full report tonight. So did my divorce attorney. Vincent lunged for the laptop. I closed it quickly and stood. That's a copy, I said. Everything's backed up in multiple locations. You can't destroy the evidence. It's already out there. He stumbled backward, hitting the desk. Nina, wait. Let's talk about this. I can explain. No, I said. You can't. Because there's no legitimate explanation for money laundering. There's no excuse for what you've done. And there's no apology sufficient for how you've treated me. I walked past him toward the bedroom. He didn't follow. He just stood there staring at the closed laptop, probably calculating how much trouble he was in. Probably already planning to call his mother. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I sat in the guest room reviewing everything one more time. The recordings of family dinners where Margaret made horrifically racist comments about her former colleagues, calling them slurs, suggesting they'd only achieved success through diversity quotas rather than merit. The videos of Sophia staging her fake lifestyle content, admitting to her followers that her life was aspirational without disclosing that it was entirely fabricated. The bank statements showing Vincent's illegal transactions. The corporate documents proving Margaret had created these shell corporations specifically to evade taxes and that she'd been the mastermind behind the entire operation. Everything was documented. Everything was ready. Everything was about to explode. The next morning, federal agents arrived at Vincent's office at 9:07 a.m. I know because Patricia called me immediately. They'd served a warrant and were seizing computers, files, everything. Vincent was being questioned. Margaret's consulting firm was being raided simultaneously. Her 3 board positions at major corporations were being reviewed, her consulting contracts suspended pending investigation. By noon, David Chin called to tell me that 3 major news outlets were running stories about Margaret Castellano's discriminatory statements. The recordings I'd provided had been verified and excerpted in articles titled, "Former Banking Executives' Racist Tirades Caught on Tape," and "Society Consultants' Secret Bigotry Exposed." Her reputation, carefully cultivated over 40 years in banking and finance, was demolished in a single news cycle. At 2 p.m. Sophia called me 17 times. I didn't answer. Then she texted, "What did you do? All my sponsors are dropping me. They're saying I violated FTC regulations. My Instagram is flooded with hate comments. People are calling me a fraud." I replied simply, "You are a fraud. Now everyone knows." Andrew filed for divorce that afternoon. He'd coordinated the timing perfectly with my own filing. Sophia lost her husband and her income source on the same day, her carefully constructed online persona collapsing in real time as followers turned against her and brands publicly denounced their association with her. Vincent came home that evening looking 10 years older. "They're charging me with money laundering," he said, his voice hollow. "Federal charges. My lawyers say I'm looking at 10 to 12 years. "I know," I said. I was packing the last of my personal items, loading them into boxes. "And my mother," he continued. "They're saying she's the primary architect. That she set up the corporations, that she taught me how to use them. They're charging her with tax evasion, conspiracy, and multiple counts of fraud. She could get 20 years. "I know that too," I said. He looked at me, then really looked at me, and saw someone he didn't recognize. "Why?" he whispered. "Why would you destroy everything?" "Because you destroyed me first," I said. "For 12 years, you let your mother treat me like I was nothing. You never defended me, never stood up for me, never once chose me over her. Last night she burned my plane tickets and you smiled." He approved. He thought it was funny. And I realized that I'd spent over a decade being invisible in my own marriage. So I decided to become very, very visible. Vincent sank onto the couch. "We can fix this," he said desperately. "I'll talk to my mother. We'll apologize. We'll respect your boundaries. Just tell the FBI it was a mistake, that you misunderstood." "No," I said. "I understood perfectly. That's why I spent 18 months building an airtight case. That's why I recorded every dinner, photographed every document, traced every illegal transaction. I wasn't misunderstanding anything, Vincent. I was gathering evidence. And now you're going to face the consequences of what you've done." I picked up my last box and walked toward the door. "Nina," he called after me. "Please. I love you." I turned back to look at him one last time. "No, you don't. You never did. You loved having someone you could control. Someone who made good money but stayed quiet. Someone useful. That's what your mother called me in one of those recordings. Useful. Well, I'm useful to myself now. Not to you." I left our house that night and never went back. The legal proceedings took months. Vincent's trial was scheduled for early spring. Margaret faced even more serious charges, and prosecutors were confident about conviction. Sophia's lifestyle blog collapsed completely, her sponsorships gone, her followers dwindling from 50,000 to less than 3,000 within weeks. Andrew's divorce from her was finalized quickly since they had no children, and he could prove she'd been fraudulently representing their financial situation. My own divorce moved forward smoothly once Vincent realized I had documentation of everything. He agreed to my terms without contest. I kept the house, half the legitimate assets, and my retirement accounts. He kept his legal bills and his criminal record. On the day of Vincent's arraignment, I was on a plane to Barcelona. I'd rebooked the conference trip, upgraded to first class, and extended my stay to 2 full weeks. As the plane lifted off from LaGuardia, I looked out the window at New York City spreading below me and felt something I hadn't felt in over a decade. Freedom. The tickets Margaret burned had been paper. The ones I held now were digital, untouchable, mine alone. She thought she could control me with that theatrical gesture, could put me in my place with fire and public humiliation. Instead, she'd ignited something far more dangerous: my determination to reclaim my life. In Barcelona, I walked through the Gothic quarter alone, ate at small restaurants where nobody knew my name, attended conference sessions where colleagues respected my expertise, and slept peacefully for the first time in years. I didn't check my phone obsessively. I didn't worry about Vincent's schedule or Margaret's expectations or Sophia's judgments. I simply existed. As myself. For myself. When I returned to New York 2 weeks later, Vincent had been formally indicted. Margaret was awaiting trial, her consulting firm shuttered, her society connections severed. Sophia had moved back in with her parents, posting occasional sad girl aesthetic photos that received dozens of sympathetic comments from the few followers who remained. I'd received 3 job offers during my time in Barcelona. Corporate law firms who'd been impressed by my conference presentations and wanted to recruit me. I accepted the best one, negotiated a significant salary increase, and started my new position a month later. Andrew and I met for coffee in late summer. He looked lighter somehow, unburdened. "Thank you," he said, "for giving me an excuse to get out. I should have left years ago." "We both should have," I said. "But we're out now. That's what matters." He raised his cup. "To new beginnings." I clinked my cup against his. "To being useful to ourselves." Vincent was sentenced to 12 years in federal prison. Margaret received 15. Their appeals were denied. The shell corporations were dissolved, the laundered money traced and returned to the IRS, the legal fees astronomical enough to drain their remaining assets. The house Vincent's family had been so proud of, the one Margaret had helped them buy with money from her illegal schemes, was seized and sold at auction. I didn't attend the sentencing. I didn't need to see their faces or hear their statements or witness their downfall in person. I'd already moved forward. The past was just that, past. Sometimes people ask me if I feel guilty about what happened to Vincent and Margaret and Sophia. I tell them the truth: I don't. I didn't commit crimes. I didn't launder money or evade taxes or defraud sponsors. I didn't humiliate anyone publicly or treat anyone like property. I simply refused to remain silent about their actions. I documented the truth and made sure the right people saw it. They destroyed themselves. I just held up the mirror. A year after everything fell apart, I booked another trip. This time to Prague. Then Paris. Then Tokyo. I traveled alone, extensively, and nobody burned my tickets or questioned my right to explore the world. Because I'd learned the most important lesson of my life. The only person who could control me was me. And I chose freedom. Margaret had declared that wives don't travel alone. She'd been wrong. This wife traveled everywhere, whenever she wanted, answerable to nobody but herself. And every trip I took, every border I crossed, every new city I explored, it all felt like victory. If Nina's powerful revenge gave you chills, smash that like button and subscribe for more incredible stories of justice. My favorite part? When Nina calmly made that one phone call while they expected tears. What was your favorite moment? Comment below. I read every single one. Your support means everything.